Chad, my son came home from the University of Wisconsin, and he says, Mom, so you've got to see this guy. These kids can deal with everything except the truth. And I said, so in the meantime, he had in his hand a flyer. And Brother Chad used to be a hippie. So one side of the flyer was his picture like he is, now, but now 40 years ago. And the other side was like, when he was a hippie. Well, the only picture I saw was that hippie. That's all I saw. So I trotted down to that campus. Probably the only parent that's ever done it. Trotted down that campus, make sure my son wasn't mixed up some kind of a cult or something, So I got there, and Chad was preaching, and I just got enamored with it, and I listened to it and watched the whole thing, and I hadn't been saved too long. I didn't get saved until I was 45. Now, I was a churchgoer, and I taught Sunday school, taught Vacation Bible School, I had 10 Commandments. I was, I never broke any of the commandments as far as I didn't murder anybody or anything like that, So I was just a nice, you're a nice person who's going to hell. So, So anyway, when I was 45, I got saved. That was back when the charismatic movement, was going. And so I went to this Bible study, and this guy said, "Are you saved?" Well, I was a city girl, so I figured being saved was sort of a country word, So I said, "I certainly am." I just lied. So I certainly am. And so I went I was in the church, and but as he walked off, I thought there's going to be a happening here tonight. Well, that wasn't in my vocabulary, that happening thing. I got in there, and the more the preacher preached, the taller he got, and I started crying. And I was just the tears were just flowing down my cheeks. And so I was such a hypocrite that after the message, I went forward and told the preacher what a good job he did. Now, I wasn't saved yet at this point. So he laid hands on me, started praying for me, and I started speaking in tongues and crying and carrying on. And when I came home, I never read the Bible. I read Bible stories and, heard sermonettes, but never read the Bible. Right. Came home and started reading that Bible, praying in tongues the whole time, and I haven't been the same since. And that was I'm 90 now, 45 years ago? Yeah, that long. Yeah. So anyway, so my son says, about this man. So I went up to him and I said, would you come to dinner, with my husband and I? So he did, and so my husband met him, and then he came through about twice a year back then. And so I think the second time he came through, I said, "Do you think I could do this?" And in denominational churches, a lot of them, you sit in the pew and the preacher preaches, and you leave and go home and done your thing, He said, "Yeah, I think you can do this." And so I thought, that's great, I can do this, Well, I never actually read the Bible all the way through yet, but I watched them, see what he did. So I satellited every school in Wisconsin. There were 8 of them. So I got my little car and I satellited by myself. And I was, at the time, I was 50 at that time. And satellited, went to all those schools and preached by myself twice a year. Because in Wisconsin, you have to be with the students, And so we've been out there. We'll be out there. And I've been doing it ever since. And it's just, it's glorious. It's just glorious.
Amen. She's read the Bible through many times now, probably 45 times or so. I don't know. That's always reading the Bible. And then we have a new one. We got Sister Myrna. We met. She's from Searcy, Arkansas, a Southern girl. She's. I say that I told Cindy the other day. I think Myrna is the most country girl I've ever met. So she's country.
I tell the students I'm from the greatest state, the only one mentioned in the Bible. Noah stepped out of the ark and saw. But I can tell these students I've never done the things you do on this campus. I don't do the sins that you'll do. Now, I did lie to my parents. I did disobey my pastor and my teachers in school. I went to Christian school. I also said a cuss word before I was a Christian. But I realized at the age of 6 years old, I was a sinner on the way to hell. And I had a lady in my church who, the old-fashioned altar, introduced me to the Lord Jesus Christ. And I repented of my sins. And then at the age of 8 years old, I was filled with the Holy Ghost during a tornado. And I just started speaking in tongues against that tornado. and that tornado went the other way.
Thank you,
And it
Jesus.
could have easily hit our house. And I'll tell these stories on campus, and the students look at me like I'm crazy. They will rile up at me because I've kept my life in pure and holy compared to Brother Jed and Sister Cindy's testimonies. And I joined Brother Jed and Sister Cindy about 1.5 years ago. I met them 9 years ago at our church camp back in Arkansas. And I kind of got interested in the ministry, what it was about. So I went out with them to Little Rock. I went out there. I knew this much that went on in college campuses. And God opened my eyes of what actually goes on. I said, there's no way I am ever doing this. And God has a sense of humor. The next year, I took an extra course in my church Bible school on missions. And I was studying Charles Spurgeon, Jonathan Edwards, all the missionaries that were here in America, even the ones abroad. And I realized I'm going to be just like them, just like Jonathan Edwards, what God told me. And so I started to open my eyes. This is what God's called me to do. My parents started realizing it. And so my mom talked to Sister Cindy. So we had 2 questions: safety and finances. Oh, it's safe on campus. Brother Jed's been hurt a few times, but I'll keep an eye on her. My second day on campus was when Sister Cindy got attacked, when a student broke her foot. And God had me there. I worked in a nursing home for 3 years. My mom and dad both in the medical field. My dad is permanently disabled. So I grew up knowing medical knowledge. I'm also the only young lady in my church that can say that I worked under my pastor's wife in the kitchen, cooking, cleaning for 9 years. So God knew what he was preparing me for that second day on campus. I was scared to death. My mom was going to come back to Indiana and pick me up. That 8-hour drive. But she said, just as Esther, you are there for such a time as this. The second question was finances. Sister Cindy said, we'll help her with our finances. And I'm here to tell you, God provides our needs. He provided the greatest opportunity I could ask for. This past November, he opened the door for me to go to Israel. And I was like, God, you really want me to go? And God confirmed it through several visions. I'm a visionary. And he confirmed it through several visions. And so when I went and I walked those places that Jesus walked, I walked those places that I've read this Bible 14 days out of the week, as I tell the students. I knew what I knew was real when I walked those places. I was baptized in the Jordan River. It was a goal on my list to be baptized where Jesus was. And when I came out of that water, I was speaking in tongues for a solid 45 minutes. I cannot speak English. I cannot walk back to the shower rooms, which is about a 3-minute walk, without holding on to something. I was so drunk in the Spirit. And that's what I loved. And when God says he moves those spirits, and then God started opening stories upon stories to me when I was in Israel. And there's at times that kids will say, the Bible's not real. I'll look at them and say, yeah, right. And then I'll open up the Bible to them or tell them one of the stories I learned in Israel. And a few weeks ago, we were at San Luis Obispo, and the students said, the flood could not happen the way it happened in the Bible. I looked at him, and I was sitting on the ground. That God just told me to sit on the ground and talk to the students. I was sitting on the ground, and I looked up at him. He was still standing. I said, it sure did, because the Bible says the fountain of the deep sprang up. Sister Cindy's sitting there listening to me. He's like, you better be right. She couldn't remember that was in the Bible. Open up to Genesis 7, and I showed him where in the Bible it says it. He shut up. He said, let's not talk anymore about the Bible. You know too much about the Bible. And so these students, God's given me opportunities to stomp them on stuff that I've learned. And I'm here to tell you, it is possible to live your life without doing the things in that world. There's nothing out there for us. And I love what God's called me to do, to preach on these college campuses. Amen.